Saber-Toothed Tiger versus Cave Bear. Who would have won this fight? In the modern world, some of the scariest animals out there are big cats and bears. In the last ice age, it wasn't much different. The extremely well-known saber-toothed tiger was a menace during the ice age, striking fear into the hearts of anyone who got a good look at them. And if you looked away and instead saw a cave bear, and we hope you saved room in your heart for more fear, this was an equally scary animal. So since the saber-toothed tiger and cave bear were two of the scariest, most powerful, most lethal animals back then, what would have happened if they fought each other? Ice Age. The last ice age began about 2.6 million years ago and lasted all the way up until about 11,000 years ago. So much more of the world had glaciers spread out across it, especially in the northern hemisphere. Dinosaurs were long gone, and the emergence of humans was on the way. The world was a very different place then, so many different species of animals that existed then. And that's when our two animals lived their lives, although they lived vastly different lives. Although these two animals were large and powerful, and you wouldn't want to tangle with either one, there is one very distinct difference between the two. And if the saber-toothed tiger and cave bear met up to fight at some point during the Ice Age, that big difference could be a deciding factor in the outcome. Could their lifestyles really be so important when it comes to a fight? Saber-toothed tiger. Here he comes, the predator with one of the scariest sets of teeth you'll ever see. The saber-toothed tiger is in the middle of a normal day in his life, walking along through a grassland, woodland or closed forest. This animal was quite versatile. He could live in any of these environments and thrive in them all too. Right now he's searching the area, eyes trained on all that surrounds him. He'd love to find prey that he could stalk and attack, killing for his next meal. In addition to the fact that the saber-toothed tiger was a predator, a successful predator, he was an apex predator, so he's less like a leopard or cheetah who knows he isn't the biggest predator on the block. He has the mentality of a lion or tiger who knows he's the boss in whatever parts he roams. Still, if he sees another predator, any other challenger, he has to be careful and implement attacks when necessary. Being an apex predator doesn't mean you don't still have competition that can take you down if you aren't prepared. There's a rustling in bushes nearby, so the saber-toothed tiger studies the movement. It could be competition, the American lion, dire wolves, or perhaps the short-faced bear. Is our large cat already about to dive into battle? It turns out it's one of saber-toothed tiger's favorite prey animals, bison. Saber-toothed tigers in North America fed primarily on bison and camels. In South America, there were forest-dwelling bison that they preyed on, as well as other animals such as tapirs, deer, and plenty more. The saber-toothed tiger jumps into action and takes down the prey with his huge body. Saber-toothed tigers were just as large as any of today's biggest cats, but he was more muscular and robustly built. So imagine a tiger today, but even more jacked. And then there are those teeth, those famous teeth that can be up to 8 inches long and are so thick. Not only would saber-toothed tiger use them to sink into the thick flesh of a bison or stab them into the flesh of a competitor like an American lion, but they were also strong enough to break through the armored cephalic shield of the gliptodont, which were essentially the Ice Age's version of having supersized the armadillos we know today. Those teeth could go through anything, couldn't they? You'd assume that was the scariest part about the saber-toothed tiger, and though you'd probably be right, there were some other things that were close to as scary. In addition to the fact that they were more muscular and robust than modern big cats, and had devastatingly huge teeth, the brain of the saber-toothed tiger had sulcal patterns that suggested it had an increased complexity in the regions that controlled hearing, sight, and coordination of the limbs. So it was agile and coordinated, it had excellent hearing, and its eyesight was great. However, a distinction is that it had less of the binocular vision that modern big cats have today, as it had relatively small eyes that were not as forward-facing. We may have found one flaw in this kitten, but is that going to be enough for this cat to lose a fight? Speaking of which, where is this cave bear? Why haven't we seen him around while we've been following the saber-toothed tiger? Cave bear. There's a very good reason we haven't seen the cave bear around. We were following the saber-toothed tiger around through much of North America and South America, and though they were found all over those continents, they didn't have any overlap with the cave bear. The cave bear lived in the same general time frame, but over in Europe and Asia. So these two had never crossed paths. Our cave bear is nosing along on a normal day in his life, And as we follow him, we could ask him about the Saber-Toothed Tiger, but he wouldn't even know what we were talking about. He's never seen one, unlike his distant cousin, the short-faced bear. Short-faced bears were omnivorous, mainly herbivorous, but also described as opportunistic carnivores. So when an opportunity presented itself, they took it. Then again, those opportunities could be taken away by the presence of a saber-toothed tiger. They could fight the feline over the food, or they could decide to not deal with a fight and go eat something else since they didn't depend on food. But again, the cave bear didn't have to worry about the saber-toothed tiger. As the name suggests, they spent much more time in caves too. They were as large as, or many times larger than, the largest modern bears today. So the largest brown bears and polar bears, that's about the average size of a cave bear, or even bigger. This was likely due to the frigid weather at the time, packing on pounds to keep warm. With those packed on pounds came immense strength in that gigantic frame. The cave bear's skeletal frame is most closely compared to the frame of the brown bear, and their teeth were similar as well. The specific wear and tear on the cave bear's teeth have led scientists to believe that they were less so indulging on tubers like modern brown bears, and more so on seeded fruits along with other foods. In studying the samples of teeth, scientists further determined that their diet was far more herbivorous than the Eurasian brown bear, to the point that it very well might have been completely herbivorous. So as we follow our cave bear around on a normal day, he isn't looking for prey to stalk and attack. He is just looking for food growing from the earth. And that's a big lifestyle difference between these two. The saber-toothed tiger is a predator. The cave bear is most likely not a predator at all, or so seldom did he prey on animals. But does that mean the cave bear is not dangerous? No way. For one, some samples have been found to have consumed meat, but it is believed that they may have displayed cannibalistic tendencies, especially if other cave bears died during hibernation. It was found that cave bears had larger amounts of bones that they consumed than any other bears, so when they decided to eat meat, they went all in. If there was no food available in their region, especially as winter drew near and they were readying for hibernation, you better believe the cave bear would go take down any animal that it had to in order to live. And if he came across a predator or large animal that was feeling territorial, he was strong and vicious with sharp claws and teeth and powerful forearms. He's a bear after all. He might have to battle with predators such as steppe lions, hyenas, or large canids in the region, but nothing like the saber-toothed tiger until now. Ice Age battle. Our saber-toothed tiger left his mark all over the Americas, leaving trails of his deceased enemies and the prey he hunted along the way. The cave bear was one of the larger and scarier animals to roam Europe and Asia. For the sake of the battle, a land bridge made of ice could connect the Americas and Eurasia once again, and the two could meet on one side or another. They'd both see each other and instantly become alerted to the power of the other, hair standing on edge, teeth bared, and sizing each other up. The saber-toothed tiger, though bigger than modern big cats, sees that he is outsized by this enemy. But he doesn't worry about that. He's seen other large animals like this before. He's seen the short-faced bear, and he knows that bear to be a predator. That bear was competition for food. If that bear encroached on his territory, it would need to be dealt with. The cave bear may not have even been a predator. Saber-toothed tiger doesn't know this. He sees the large body and he is threatened, so he attacks a threat with his own threat. His muscular body would send him lunging in a lethal manner at the cave bear, and the cave bear would be put on the defensive. That's the most likely start to this fight, because the cave bear, though defensive and aggressive when he needs to be, didn't have the same kill mentality as the saber-toothed tiger. His hesitation would gift the saber-toothed tiger the ability to strike first. But the cave bear is larger, and he'd possess plenty of strength to defend himself. As the two tangled, the cave bear on the defensive side, he'd have to watch out for those 8-inch teeth. They could do so much damage if they connected. An interesting thing to note, it wasn't believed that the saber-toothed tiger had all that powerful of a bite, not even as strong as the modern lion. It was strong enough, and those jaws opened wide, and as long as those front teeth could sink into some flesh, they'd go deep and inflict damage. The cave bear's bite force isn't known, but if it was anything like his modern bear cousins, then it's very possible that he could have a stronger bite than the saber-toothed tiger. His teeth aren't 8 inches long, but they're strong, sharp teeth that could chew through bone. The cave bear needs to try to inflict a bite of his own, but without leaving himself vulnerable to Saber-Toothed Tiger's bite, and that will be difficult. It will be difficult because the cave bear isn't nearly as agile as the feline in this fight. He will have a tough time executing this attack and keeping a good defense, where Saber-Toothed Tiger excels at this kind of thing. This isn't the lifestyle of the cave bear. This is the lifestyle of Saber-Tooth. He already knows where to focus his attacks and how to go for the kill shot. For these reasons, the Saber-Toothed Tiger would have had a great chance of winning this fight, and though he'd take plenty of damage from the heavier cave bear, his aggressive, predatory nature would give him an advantage. An advantage in this scenario, the scenario where the two saw each other at the same time, and Saber-Tooth pounced first. But there's a chance that they wouldn't have detected each other at the exact same time. Unlike modern big cats, Saber-Tooth didn't have that binocular vision. If the cave bear was farther off and spotted Saber-Tooth first, he may have gone undetected for just long enough to charge and get the upper hand. Cave bear was believed to be almost as fast as modern bears that he was as big as, meaning he could probably run almost 30 miles per hour. And Saber-Tooth was a little slower than modern cats as well, also able to run 30 miles per hour. So if a cave bear began to charge him, and he didn't detect the cave bear until it was already running top speed, he wouldn't be able to react in such a positive way. He'd now have to deal with this bear that could have weighed over 1,400 pounds barreling towards him, and then Saber-Tooth would find himself in a situation he wasn't used to at all, playing defense. Again, the 8-inch teeth can never be discounted, but this is the scenario in which the cave bear has his best shot. But all in all, though smaller, the Saber-Toothed Tiger was still powerful, and he was too lethal. Hunting was in his nature. He'd be the betting favorite in this one.